Hey folks, and welcome back to Drawing Somewhat Slower, the counterpart to Drawing Too Fast, where I actually take the time to explain what I'm doing instead of just flying through everything at the speed of light. So this time around, I'm working on another prompt from my prompt book. This piece's theme was Lotus. You can be forgiven for not catching up on that one too quickly, because I made it more of a set piece than a central theme this time around. I wanted it to be a bit of a suggestion off on the side and then build a larger, more complex piece around it. So what we have here is a chubby little kappa sitting at the bottom of his pond using a lotus as a fishing lure. And like I said, I wanted this to be a more alive, more involved piece than I'm typically used to, where I do like one or two big things with a focus towards the center, and I just wanted it to be more alive. So with more going on. And what I'm doing right here is going in and laying down my first base color coat, my like really pale tones, because if you've watched a couple of these, you will have noticed that by now at the end I'm always saying, oh, I went back in to up the contrast here, because surprise, I'm never happy with anything I do, and by the end I do always want to sort of make things look a little nicer. So I prepare for that. I go in knowing that I'm going to want to change those values by the end, so I start light and work dark. I'm not sure if that's how you're supposed to do it with watercolor, but I know that that's what I do, so I hope it's good. Anyway, I started with the earth tones, and then I started with the same sort of thing with the grass here. Not quite an earthy green, but definitely a mid-ish toned green that I can go and darken up later or add lighter colors around to enhance. And I did the same thing with his hair here. Not the same green as the grass, and not quite so dark, but definitely a little more muted, a little more earth toned, so I can come back and add more detail later. I actually like this little fish, and I'll talk about it more when I have the big fish going as well. But I used the little guys and their silhouettes to create the illusion of depth. Now here I am going in and darkening some of the blades of seaweed, and here's where I start using those dark colors to sort of push things into the background and just make things look a little more dimensional. Now, the little frog here was a little bit of an afterthought, but I ended up liking it, because like I said, I wanted this piece to be a little more complex than I'm used to, a little more alive than I tend to make my pieces, so I wanted to add in some cool little details that I wouldn't have thought to if I were just focusing on the lotus. And here I'm going in and shaping the silhouettes of the fish in the background. I intentionally left their detail highly limited as compared to the more detailed fish in the foreground, because I wanted them to help give that illusion of depth. By sacrificing detail and using muddier or at least more muted colors and just their outlines, I was able to push them to the back of the pond instead of them being right on the same plane as the inked and outlined fish, which gives the whole thing depth, makes it feel less flat, and contributes to that more living feeling that I was going for. Now this lotus, I actually like this. I really like the roots here, which I think is sort of silly, but it was just sort of a weird, serendipitous stroke of the pen that I happen to really enjoy, and I'm still proud of those little roots. Painting the lotus leaves themselves was actually pretty cool. I just used a wash to guide the paint down towards the more down or away from the more concentrated areas of color to give them sort of like a diffuse color, which I really like. And I threw yellow on the little ends of the bits here because I wanted them to pop. It's not the focus, but I wanted it to be visible as part of the piece overall. Now here are some of those dark tones I said I always go back and do, which Yes, I do, because by the end of every piece I make, I always feel like it's way too flat, and I want there to be more contrast in these things, especially once I see where the final colors are going to land, and I know I don't have to do a lot more tweaking. I can go back and make the things that are already there make them just stand out more, and direct the eye around the piece in ways I hadn't been able to plan at the beginning. I don't know if kappa are supposed to be blue, but my mental image of a kappa is always influenced by Golduck, the Pokemon, because I knew when I was a kid that he was based on a kappa, so he's just always in my head as the archetypal critter. So if they're not supposed to be blue, folklore experts, please don't hate me, just know that I was enjoying myself. Now, when I first envisioned this piece, I pictured the water being like crystal clear and bright blue, but as I got into it, it didn't really fit or seem like it would look that way anymore. So I sort of shifted back to what I'm used to seeing water in the wild as, like this sort of like murky but still vibrant green, because, you know, I'm from where there are lakes and lots of big lakes and lots of green water. And you'll see in the background there, I did the same thing with the seaweed as I did with the fish. Unfortunately, it's not on camera, but it's the same idea. Less detail and less harsh outlines lets me push things more to the back and give everything more depth. Alright folks, here it is, the little kappa fishing at the bottom of the pond. I hope you enjoyed watching that. I really enjoy making these, but if there's anything that I'm not covering that you'd like me to talk about, just let me know down in the comments. And if you want to follow along with what I'm doing when I'm not making these videos, be sure to check me out on Instagram at terminal.lazy. That's just like the channel name, but with a little dot in the middle. And on Twitter at terminallazy, just like the channel name. Again, thanks for hanging out, and I hope to see you next time for more Drawing Somewhat Slower. Bye!